Basketball, football, baseball. From Division I to Division III, it's time for College Sports Weekly with Don Macholis and Dan Underberg on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network.
All right, welcome in. It's College Sports Weekly live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Don Macholis, along with the Professor Dan Underberg. Charlie working hard on the other side. We love Charlie over there, pushing all the buttons and
doing what I can,
getting us ready to roll here for another 2 hours
keeping us on the road.
We make our way, I should say, into the Elite Eight. So we'll talk about all of the games that took place here over the last couple of days in getting us to the Elite Eight out of the Sweet 16. Also, we're going to talk with head coach Jason Zimmerman out at Emory. Emory is one of two that will be playing. Nice time to have a cough attack right there. In the national championship at the Division III level next week. So Coach will be joining us at around 10:20 to preview the Division III national championship. And Dan, I think it's one of those that you hope we get to talk to him today and maybe in 2 weeks, right? Because then in 2 weeks, we'll be talking to a potential national champion.
Yeah, absolutely. And those conversations are always more fun.
Yes. Yeah. Now it's a little tense. I don't want to give away too much.
Right.
You never know what's taking place heading into the national championship. But once you host the trophy, then things are a little bit different.
And you're willing to talk about more and just kind of enjoy the moment, which is great. But, either way, we're happy to talk to them. It's all good.
Absolutely. So before we get into some basketball, let's talk about a couple of things that are happening in Madison with regards to the hockey team. And then also an announcement today, Dan, and I'm going to let you cover that one when we get to it, talking about women's volleyball, which is on the horizon here. I believe in August is when the announcement will be made for, but we'll get to that in just a moment. But first, let's start with the women's hockey program up in Madison. They are now national champions. Again.
Yep.
They held the trophy. Here's some stats that I have to read from because the memory just isn't there anymore to try and memorize this and spew it out. So if you look at the women's hockey team, it's their 12th 30-plus season in program history. It's their 11th WCHA regular season title. It's their 13th straight NCAA tournament appearance. They hold the WCHA Player of the Year. They had 4 Patty Kaiserman Award top 10 finalists. They did have the Patty Kaiserman, which is, for instance, the Heisman Trophy equivalent in women's college hockey. That came from Wisconsin. And by winning the national championship, it was only their 9th. I mean, hopefully one day they'll get the program to respectability, but it's only their 9th championship. So congratulations to the women's hockey team up in Madison, because that's a powerhouse to be reckoned with within the confines of our fine state.
And the growth of women's hockey, if you look at how hockey has changed over the course of the last 20 years, how it's been embraced by the Big Ten, and Wisconsin only beat the Ohio State University 3-2 in overtime, which is sweet. If you're just a Badger fan, you just want Ohio State to go down no matter what.
No matter what.
And so having that win last weekend was just amazing. You've got your keeper, Evan McNaughton, stopping 34 shots. 34 shots.
Amazing.
Only 2 slipped by. That was, just an incredible performance on that. What an amazing job that's being done at the University of Wisconsin, by the whole hockey program. We saw a little bit of down a little for the men's. Now they're starting to come back, but the women have just maintained a level of excellence that I think all other programs aspire to.
Well,
reach.
Speaking of the men, they got a nice win over Dartmouth, and that win will get the Badgers to their first regional final since 2010. The reward is you get the number 1 seed in Michigan State. Now, we have a bit of a connection to Michigan State, a former student who's a backup there as a goalie at Michigan State. So I'm really looking forward to this matchup. I want the Badgers to win. I think it'll be kind of interesting to see if we get to a pan of the bench and be able to spot. But that game takes place at 3:30 today. So congratulations to the men's hockey team, which is kind of parlaying off the success of the women and ascending in their own right.
And an opportunity for them to make a statement
Yes.
for this year that Wisconsin hockey is returning to the Badger Bob days.
The Badger Bob
days.
yes.
You know,
Remember.
today is a great day for hockey. Remember those days
Yes. Yep.
at the old Dane County Coliseum. So yeah, to make that step back up to, you know, where Wisconsin expects its hockey program to be.
Right.
Where it's been for so long. You know, later on in the show, we're going to be talking about blue bloods and what that means. Wisconsin has been for so long a blue-blooded hockey, and then it's kind of faded away a little bit. It's good that it's coming back.
And it's a case study almost in all of the colleges around the country whose fan bases are fire the coach, fire the coach, fire the coach. Now, in this case, when we talk about Badger Bob, it was, you know, I've been here a long time.
Yeah.
I'm going to go play some golf since Chuck just walked out of here. I'm going to go play some golf kind of a deal. But you see sometimes when you've got a good program run by good leadership and all of the things that surround it from an administrative standpoint, when that goes away, it's not always easily replaced. And when it's not easily replaced, suddenly you're waiting for it to reascend, and that can take time if you don't have the right elements there to continue and to have a successful program. Now, another thing with regards to the Badgers, before we start talking about the Sweet 16, which has now evolved into the Elite Eight, is what's going to take place at Fiserv Forum in the coming months as far as women's volleyball goes. And Daniel, you know, I'm going to turn that one over to
this
you,
is
boss.
exciting. This is because what's going on is the AVCA First Serve tournament. It's going to happen in August 2026, and I believe we're looking at Friday, August 21st, and Saturday, August 22nd. Now, if you are a volleyball fan, or if you have volleyball players in your family, you probably have watched a lot of NCAA volleyball, particularly on the women's side. And talk about blue bloods. And they posted this yesterday, and I thought to myself, the idea is that you're getting people excited about the upcoming season. Man, this is a potential preview when you look at some of these teams of what the Final Four is going to be.
Yeah.
These are incredible teams. Obviously, you're going to have Wisconsin. You've got the University of Kentucky. You've got Louisville, Texas A&M. Texas is going to be there, just a stalwart in women's volleyball. And then you have Pitt, another great team that's going to be there. SMU and Arizona State University. I'm telling you, if you love volleyball, and right now everybody loves that sport, is just gaining in popularity hand over foot. What an opportunity to go down to Fiserv and just watch these teams play.
Yeah, it's great to have something like that in your own backyard. So it'll be interesting to see how some of the details unfold, and we'll make sure we talk about it as such once those details do come out here on College Sports Weekly. All right, let's pivot. Let's talk about the Elite Eight, which is now in play. We get so excited, guys. Charlie, I get so excited for the national tournament, and then all of a sudden, in a blink of an eye, we're talking about the Elite Eight. Next week, we'll have boots on the ground. We'll be in Indianapolis for the Final Four. But all of a sudden, just like that, the tournament's done. And it's always difficult, kind of like when you come out of football season. After the bowl season takes place and the NFL, and all of a sudden on Sundays, you're like, I want football. What happened to football? And the same thing now.
It was just here.
It was just here. Now
I
we've
put
had
it down. And I walked out of the room, and it's gone.
Suddenly
what
it's
happened?
gone. But we've had these Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday games, and you get yourself programmed and loving all of these games and flipping channels and doing everything necessary. And then by next week, it's going to be gone again. And now I've got to pivot and get back to baseball.
I think you choked up a little bit.
I think I did. It's amazing to me, Charlie, how fast it goes is where I'm going with this.
Did it feel like that in 2015 when they're going all the way to the national championship game? Does it still feel as quick when the Badgers are in it still? Or does it feel that way because we've seen them lose in the first round this year, the second round last year, where it just speeds up after you see your team get bounced out?
Wow, that's a good Charlie dropping knowledge and questions on a
I woke
Saturday
up earlier
morning.
today. My brain's
Wow.
going
Hurts
fat
a little
earlier,
bit.
you know, it's
I'm
weird.
only like a
Talking
quarter
about this
away through a
wonderful-
diet too. I got to get some more caffeine in me. I think that's a great question. I think for me, it always goes fast, but I get what you're saying. I think when you have a team like the Badgers or Marquette or whoever it might be that's still playing and you're invested, even though it goes fast, it's different
It is
because every day there's a story. Every day there's the anticipation of the next game and what could be if they do win. Yeah, it does. I still think it goes by fast. I just think the way you're invested, obviously, as you said, the question changes a little bit because you've got somebody or something in it, and you're just every day it's a storyline.
Well, and then the other thing that I guess makes it go faster in my eyes too is the idea that there isn't these mid-major teams in it. Your lowest seed is Iowa sitting at a 9 seed, and that's a Big Ten school that's coming in that's playing just really good basketball, especially as of late. So you don't have, I guess, you do have the storylines that are flying through, but it's not the same kind of storylines that people are usually trying to follow throughout this tournament. When you have a McNeese State making it to the Sweet 16 Elite Eight, people are waiting for that team to play that game. I think that brings out the anticipation a little bit more. When you're looking forward to Iowa taking on Illinois, which I think us as Big Ten fans, as Badgers fans, that becomes a little bit more exciting. But the rest of the country isn't looking at Iowa and Illinois and saying, I'm waiting for that game in my mind.
Well, then the question, Dan, is, so we'll just go sidetrack. Take this, throw it out the window.
We knew that.
Who
You
needs a
predicted that.
show itinerary anyway, right?
You called that.
I know, but I get caught up in it as well. Does the fan base, again, I'll use how Charlie phrased it, outside of the Big Ten then, are they as excited to see two Big Ten teams go at it, which has the potential for a great game, like some of the games we saw last night? Or would you rather see that Cinderella, that mid-major, and see what they can do? I'm of the opinion I like to see Cinderella get a game maybe in the first weekend or two and get to the Sweet 16. When I get to the Elite Eight and beyond, I want my powerhouses going at it so my matchups are good. I've been to those Cinderella Final Fours, where if you hear the band play Bon Jovi's We're Living on a Prayer, we're halfway there, one more time, you were about to jump out of the upper deck. But when I get to the Elite Eight and then to the Final Four and championship, I want the powerhouses going at it.
Yeah, I guess for me, if I look at what's going on right now, and Charlie's point about Wisconsin earlier is like, when your team loses, you look for other subplots, and this current Sweet 16 has had a lot of decent subplots going in that pull you into it. For example, Thursday evening with Nebraska and Iowa. Nebraska only, I know where you're going. Nebraska never having been to a Sweet 16 before, and you have two, state fan bases that have had a natural rivalry for years, and putting that on. So that's interesting to me. And then you've got these coaching matchups, these epic coaching matchups. Well, last night, you've got Danny Hurley and you going up against Michigan State and Izzo. Right? It's they're the things that kind of pull me in. So when we get to this point, what's interesting about the NCAA tournament is once your team loses, it hurts. And for the record, it still hurts. But it still pulls you back in. There's excellent basketball to be played.
Right.
Last night's games were great.
Yeah.
And you get into the one game, that's good enough, where I'm going to go into the next one, see how that works out. And the two great games, and that's to your point. Then you're getting into the powerhouse teams and doing that. The only time you're really kind of rooting for that moment of Cinderella, maybe Butler was doing that, or Loyola of Chicago with Sister Jean, the departed Sister Jean.
Yeah.
But every now and again, you realize you're going to get to that place where there's going to be a James Madison. They're just going to get blown out at some point.
Yeah. Well, living on a prayer. Charlie, I go back to you because Dan brought it up. Nebraska. How do you put four guys on the floor when you've got 3,473 assistant coaches that sit behind the bench where everybody has a specific job? You don't have a grad assistant. You don't have a elementary school student as a volunteer trainer who just has this job. Count how many guys are on the floor. Make sure I have 5. Like, no one knew. Even the guys on the floor, at some point you had to look around and go, where's Charlie? Charlie, come here. Come on. We got to get you. Go check in because we only got 4. That happens at a grade school. It may happen at a middle school. Heaven forbid it happen at high school. It should never happen in a college program. All week long, all I read in The Athletic was how it's Indiana what they've done in football and kind of flip the script,
Mhm.
what Nebraska has
Right.
done
Oh,
in
yeah.
basketball.
Mhm.
Once a proud football school is now a proud basketball school whose coach
Mhm.
only put 4 players on the floor, Charlie.
Well, and just insane too, because not only is it a college program, but it's a college program coached by a guy who used to coach in the NBA, in Fred Hoiberg. Like, he should know these types of things and be able to pay attention to that type of stuff.
A third grader should know you need 5 on the floor.
Like, absolutely nuts. And then he comes into his press conference afterwards when people are asking him about it, and it's like, well, the refs are usually counting and
Yeah.
telling us we have too many guys on the court. Well, I don't know why they didn't tell me that I had too few guys on the court. I don't know. You're the head coach of the team. Pay attention to how many people are out on the court. It's insane to me. And and I get it. You're flustered. The team is really just fired up. You have a lot of adrenaline going. You're in this huge moment that you haven't been before in forever. And now you're going to sit here and again, just pretend like, oh, it was a little brain fart. No, you have to take that adrenaline. You have to take that energy that you've built up to this point and make sure everything is right down to the minute details, like having
Like
5 guys on the
floor.
court.
Right. But when coaches make explanations like that, that's where I think us as fans, we kind of lose it. So you got Hoiberg, who's like, well, the refs usually tell me how many are on the floor. No, you should know when you come out of a timeout, all you have to do is turn. You hand the clipboard to another assistant coach who then passes it down to somebody
Right.
wearing a Nebraska pullover had to look out on the floor and go, coach, we only got 4. We got 4. Coach, we need 1 more. Something. And then yesterday, I hear Patino fussing and moaning because he had to wait in the wings for 45 minutes to an hour before his press
Oh,
conference.
no.
Oh my goodness. I am so sorry you had to wait to talk to the press when you're making the kind of money you are, when you are having the kind of success that you are at St. John's. Yes, it's disappointing. To me, you should be thankful you had to wait, because what does it do? It calms you down and you don't then utter some of the mischief and garbage that sometimes a coach will utter in the midst of being heated after a loss. It gives you an opportunity to kind of get yourself together. And I know sitting there waiting, knowing you're still going to have to talk about it, can't be easy, but at least it gives you an opportunity to calm your nerves a little bit. So then to come out and really, talk about the first statement is, well, we had to sit and wait 45 minutes to come out here and speak to you guys. Shut up.
That's yeah, Patino has those shut up moments, doesn't he? Like when
Yes.
he was telling the Big East how they should spend millions per team just to, hey, coach your team.
Right.
And yet there were moments where it's kind of this love-hate relationship that I have with Rick Pitino, because every now and again he'll say something that is so clear cut, so common sense.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. Capillari is the same thing. It's just every now and again he just pops out, like when those two guys are the voice of reason. Like what's going on now? Okay, now here's not the voice of reason.
Go.
I kind of got what he was saying. I understand. And I hear what you're saying. You're getting paid a lot of money. It's good that you can sit down and you can calm down, but you also want to be with your team. You want to start to wrap things up. You want to go and have to wait 45 minutes for, a 15 to 20 minute presser. I get it. I get why that's frustrating. I do. I understand that. Somewhere out there's got to be your SID, your people out there saying, okay, you got to get to one last question, because we've both been in there. You've been in there. They throw up the finger, last question, and you got to get to that sooner, right?
Yeah.
And granted, maybe it took a long time for the guys to get into the press room and be able to do that, but there's got to be some kind of schedule. So I kind of get where Pitino's coming from, because you got a team that's hurting.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to be with them, and there's other people that you have to talk to that evening,
Mm-hmm.
and you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting. Nah, I understood where he was coming from on that. Would I have said it? Probably not. Maybe have that conversation later.
Have it,
But
not everything has to be said into a microphone.
yeah, because you can't always be the victim in things like this.
And
Can't-
that's what it ends up being painted as.
Right.
That's how I'm painting it as, right? Like, stop playing the victim card. You lost a game. What, as you put it, what you're saying is reasonable, but the time and the place for that discussion wasn't at that moment, because you come off,
Mhm.
well, we lost, that whole scenario as that goes. All right. Here's what we're going to do. It's all Charlie's fault. Charlie sent us in a direction that we weren't intending to go, but we went there anyway. So listen, we live in the year 2026. You got to blame somebody. Charlie, I blame you. It's all your fault this morning. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll look at the Elite Eight as it stands today. I had some great games last night. And then as we move forward, the money train is going to join us around 9:40. Went 500 last week, but our guy is still 9-12 on the season. He's still having a good run here as we've made our way back into the Wisconsin Sports Studio Network. It is College Sports Weekly live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios. We are powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. All right, welcome back in. It's College Sports Weekly, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios. We are powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Don't forget, you can join us on the Nicolay Law talk and text line, 414-677-1250, or find us on all of our social medias at WI Sports Radio. Once again, that's at Wisconsin Sports Radio. So, Dan, let's start talking about some of the games that took place. And I want to start with that Michigan-Alabama game last night. Now, there were, I'll say, how would I say it? I'll say there were better games yesterday.
Yep.
For instance, in that UConn-Michigan State, which was a battle right down to the wire. But in starting with Michigan and Alabama, even though Michigan ends up winning 90-77, a pretty dominant performance in the second half. In the second half, Michigan outscored Alabama 43-28. But in that first half, Alabama goes to intermission ahead by 2, 49-47. And the reason I bring this up is this has been a bit of an Achilles heel for the Michigan Wolverines. As dominant as they've been all season, there have been those opening 20 minutes where they've struggled. We saw it against the Badgers when the Badgers were able to hold on and play a full 40 minutes, unlike Alabama last night, and get the road victory during the regular season. But I bring it up simply because as the games now start getting tighter, more intense, the pressure starts to build. I don't know if you can always afford to have those type of opening 20 minutes and expect to rebound, no pun intended, to come out in the second half and absolutely run over a team. Because, again, now the caliber of opponent is going to be a little bit better. Dynamics come into play, style of play, you name it, all the characteristics we've talked about. I just wonder if what we saw yesterday, even though Michigan won, shows a bit of vulnerability by this Wolverines team still sitting there with that number one seed going into the tournament.
Here's another stat that I'm going to use to counter your argument. Okay.
Go.
Rebounds, Michigan 40, Alabama 28. Okay. And my point being with that is Michigan is so big, so long, and so talented right now that you can have, in this case, I think an Alabama team play over their head a little bit, but eventually Michigan is going to be deep enough that it's going to come back and kind of bite you. And so if I'm a Wolverines fan, I'm not particularly concerned about the way the first half finished last night and maybe the first 20 minutes, because I think if you look at this, another one, 48.1% from three, Alabama 29.8. This team is so good that even if you want to make the argument that Michigan wasn't playing well in the first half, and I think you can, but I think you also have to say Alabama was playing really well. I think there's enough evidence to look at the Wolverines and say, no, we're good. We're going to, I think Michigan fans should be booking their trips to Indiana or Indianapolis right now. They're a really good basketball team.
And I think the rebuttal, Charlie, might be in the fact that you look at, and we saw this in the Iowa State game as well, you're looking at an Alabama and an Iowa State team that's missing both of their starters.
Mm-hmm.
And that could have been a difference maker as well. I agree with you, Dan. I think Alabama played above their skill set with the guys that they had on the floor in that opening 20 minutes. Again, I just think now going into the Elite Eight, and if they get to the Final Four, even in that Final Four matchup, that there's some susceptibility with this team that could prevent them from getting to the final game.
Well, and when you look at that loss against Wisconsin earlier in the season, it really felt like the Badgers came out and just knew how to play with more energy than a Michigan team. And if Michigan goes into any kind of matchup, especially against a number 6 seeded Tennessee team, you can underestimate them a little bit. If Tennessee comes out and punches them in the mouth right away, I think that is kind of hard to rebound a little bit from, even if they have done it in the past. Now, to your point, I think rebounding and I think clutch shot making are the two biggest things in the tournament that really help a lot of these teams propel them to this point. And Michigan has the rebounding, and what we've seen so far this season, again, in the second matchup against Wisconsin in the Big Ten tournament, that they have the clutch shot making and they have the ability to be clutch in those last 2 minutes of a game. I think those are really important. But if you get down too early and you give yourself too little time to bounce back in these situations, I think that can stun you really fast in a tournament like this.
All right, so let's move to another game that took place last night. And to me, this was one of the matchups we were eyeing, and I think it turned out to be, at least in my view, the game of the night, and that was UConn and Michigan State. Dan, you talked about in the first segment, two iconic coaches going at one another, two really iconic programs when it comes to basketball in their respective conferences, battling each other, and it's UConn that prevailed. But with a little over a minute to go, you had a 1-point game. It became possession by possession there down that final 60 seconds. And from a fan standpoint, who really had no iron in the fire, so to speak, it was one of those games to just sit back, watch, and enjoy, because it was what makes the tournament so special, knowing what's on the line. It's what makes it different in my mind than the NBA playoffs, because, okay, you lost by one, but now we're going to go back to the film room. We're going to tweak some things, and then whether it's tomorrow or if it's the NBA, we'll play game 2 next week and worry about it then as they divide things up and extend their playoffs. But when you know it's win, advance, lose, go home, and to watch that last 60 seconds where everything is on the line, that, to me, it was just a great game. Again, either team advancing, I'm good with.
Yeah, I am too. And I what I took from last night's game between those two teams was UConn was a little faster. It looked like they were a step ahead of the Spartans at just about and definitely in the first half. That first half was just epically challenging basketball by the Spartans, and then great basketball by the Huskies. You know, when you've got a 19-point lead on a Tom Izzo coach team, that's amazing. And then on the other end, man, you saw Michigan State eventually very carefully start to craft away at that lead. You know, they were down by less than 10 at half, and then all of a sudden they get up by one about halfway through, about the 10-minute mark, and then they're just playing back and forth basketball. It was a fantastic game, but I can't not think that UConn is going to have a little bit of an edge going forward because of their team speed, because as good as Michigan State is, it just felt like they were just getting there faster than Michigan State could keep up with.
Charlie, 3 of the last 4 years, we've watched this UConn team get to the Elite Eight. Obviously, there's a national championship, make that back-to-back national championships woven into that. Under Hurley, they have been a bit of a dynasty, as much as he likes to drive, I think, us as Marquette fans nuts in what we saw. I would love to see them get to the Final Four in some fashion or capacity, just to, as a Marquette Golden Eagle fan, say, yeah, we beat you last regular season of the game. I mean, to me, that's something that those guys can hang their hats on as far as a season goes, when things weren't going all that particularly well for the Marquette Golden Eagles. But man, UConn has risen back to prominence. We were talking about college hockey before, and seeing now the Badgers kind of ascend again. Once Hurley stepped into it, he's really brought UConn basketball back to the forefront.
Well, and he just has such a great mindset that every player on his team buys into. And I've talked about this with Greg Gard and the Badgers, is that when you're able to recruit with such a purpose that you can basically identify the type of player that you're looking for before you even get him into the building, that makes it really easy to build this type of culture that Danny Hurley has built. And yesterday he was talking about how a lot of kids nowadays, a lot of people in society nowadays, are kind of treated a little soft, and that his hard style that he shows on the court isn't what he is all the time off the court, that he is a guy that has strong relationships with his team, but that on the court, he's going to get on you. If you're going to mess up and not do your job that you know how to do, then he's going to be the guy that's going to say you. He's going to yell at you. He's going to do these things that are a tough coaching that a lot of people look at from the outside and say, how can you go and do that to these kids on a nightly basis? But what they're not seeing is him having these relationships where the kids build this type of tough skin to get to that point where they can take that type of yelling. And I get it from the Marquette perspective that you're excited about, maybe potentially beating the national championship in the last game of the season. One question I have about this UConn team, is it more or less impressive that they're having this type of dynasty run in this era of college basketball because you have the NIL and the transfer portal? Does that make it harder or easier for them to get to this point of prominence?
That you were reading my mind, because, Dan, one of the things Charlie just said is, we look at what Hurley does and some of the antics, and, we talked about it even here in that last game against Marquette where he gets tossed with, a second and a half to go because he bumped the ref, all of that stuff. Yeah. But it's the idea in Charlie's explanation. He hit it right on the head. It's relationships, right? The Izzos, the Hurleys of the world that you watch coach these kids hard, but all of those kids will talk about the relationship they have with the coach. And I would say, Charlie, and Dan, you can piggyback off this whatever way you want to roll with it. I think it is more difficult. What I appreciate about Hurley is the fact that he does it his way. And if you don't like it, you can go. You can go into I'm not changing me to worry about whether a student athlete is going to stay because they're now, oh, he said something to me, I'm going to jump into transfer portal. That's not going to be someone that fits what the culture is right now of UConn basketball.
Right.
So I think it's much more challenging for all of the coaches. I think it's refreshing. I don't know if I'd want to be a part of that team. I have no idea, again, because we only see what we see on the sidelines during a game and not the relationships that take place off the court. But I also do find it, as I was saying, refreshing that here's a guy who I'm not changing. This is who I am. And if you don't appreciate what we're doing here at UConn, you've got an out now because of the way the transfer portal is.
It's interesting. If you look over time, the coaches that have been, kind of the hardline coaches that you were kind of talking about right now, they seem to have had more tenure than any other coach. Nobody else has asked them to leave. You think about it. It took a bad moment in Bobby Knight's career,
right,
to get him to go. And I'm not saying that's going to happen anywhere else. I'm not saying that it can't, but the ones that what's forgotten about Bobby Knight, for example, are that his guys graduated. He was very intentional about that. So when you look at Danny Hurley, he was the guy that came out 1 or 2 years ago when NIL was really getting traction and said, I'm coaching these guys like professionals. And he's getting players. And this is where I go back and forth. Is it easier or harder to recruit? He's getting guys that know they're walking into that environment. Okay. Guys that know they're going to get coached, that know they're going to be held accountable. And that's not easy for anyone. You don't think it's going to be you, but eventually you're going to find yourself in the target for any of these coaches that are there because you messed up. You weren't accountable to where, your spacing, whatever is going to be. So I think to a degree, it's a little like, I'm going to go in a different direction. When people are getting recruited to a place like Northwestern or Stanford and they want to be competitive and people say, well, isn't that harder? And a lot of times coaches will say, not really. We know exactly who we have to go after.
Right.
And in this case, I think it might be similar to that. Is it harder to find these guys? No, to a degree, I think some of these guys find them. They make themselves available to these coaches and say, I am the guy that you can coach, that I can handle this. Even yesterday, Pitino was talking about in 52 years, it was one of the most unique teams he's ever had because there was never an argument. There was never a fight within the roster. That kind of tells you that if you're going to get into a Rick Pitino type system and environment, or if you're going to get into a Danny Hurley type environment, that it's going to be so intense. You don't have time to argue with everybody else. You're worrying about doing what you have to do, and you've signed up for that. So I don't know if it's harder or not. It just depends, probably the transactional nature of the player, guys. I don't know.
I when you were bringing that example up, I was thinking about and having conversations with the coaching staff down at MSOE in the Milwaukee area, an engineering school that plays, Division III basketball at a really high level. And the coach is saying, to your point, there's only a finite number of engineering schools, quality engineering schools around the country. We know who to go after. We know the student athletes who are going to specialize in the field that we're offering. And so it makes it a little bit easier because we don't have to necessarily weed certain recruits out.
Right.
There's only going to be a finite number that are headed our way to begin with. We know who to target. All right, let's get to a break. On the other side of the break, it's time to win people some money as the money train will roll in, and we'll get to headlines as we make our way to the top of the hour. Don't forget, hour number 2, Jason Zimmerman, the head coach at Emory, is slated to join us at around 10:20 as Emory gets ready next week to play for the Division III National Championship. We'll talk to Coach again around 11:20. After all that is said and done, it's College Sports Weekly, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by Potawatomi Sportsbook.
your best. Push your best.
All right, welcome back in. It's College Sports Weekly live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios. We are powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook as we jump to the Nicolay Law talk and text line and bring in the man, the myth, the legend. It's the Money Train. TA, good morning, my friend.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you today?
We're doing good. 2-2 last week, but 9-12 over the last few. 500 is all right. We're at even money.
Wait, 9-3.
Oh, that's right. Because there were 3 and 9 and 12, 9 and 3.
Saturday,
Yeah.
and you're doing math on a Saturday.
Thank you. Thank you. Not only did I screw that up, Charlie gets me with an intellectual question in the first segment. Oh,
Making
we're
you
having,
work today.
we're having a fine day here at the radio station. All right, T, talk to me. What's game number 1 in your book?
All right, I'm going to take all the games for the weekend for the rest of the weekend, and these picks are hotter than that curry dinner you had.
Oh!
All right. We got Iowa and Illinois. Illinois given 7.5. Iowa is going to run out of gas. I'm going to lay the 7.5 with the Illini. I think they're a little too big, and if they can stop that outside shooting from Iowa, no problem covering the 7.5.
All right, so first pick is Illinois, given 7.5. Number 2, my friend.
All right, Purdue, Arizona. I like Arizona to win, but it's 6.5. I think Purdue's going to keep it tight. You know, gives a little slop at the end. Look at Michigan State last night. Down, they came back from a 19-point deficit and almost covered that game. So I'm going to take Purdue with the 6.5 points.
All right, Purdue plus 6.5. I do like the fact you quantified it by saying you like Arizona to win. Otherwise, you and I would have had a discussion off the air. All right, number 3, sir.
Okay, Tennessee, Michigan. This sets up for a great game in the Final Four for you. And just so you know, we got a Big Ten team going to the Final Four this year for sure.
Yes.
Tennessee getting 7.5. Once again, I'm going to take the points. I think they're a little much, but this is tomorrow, so keep an eye on the line. I think Michigan wins to set up that matchup one-on-one with Arizona next week. But I'm going to take Tennessee with the 7.5.
All right, Tennessee with the 7.5. I would love to see Tennessee on the upset, to see them down at the Final Four in Indianapolis. And
My wife would too.
Yeah, I know. And your final pick, my friend.
Okay, UConn and Duke. I've been flipping a coin, and it just comes up on the edge.
Wow.
You know, Danny Hurley, Mr. March, I'm going to go with UConn plus 4.5. I don't like this game, but I have to pick it. So I will take UConn with the points versus laying the points.
All right, so let's recap it. Illinois minus 7.5, Purdue plus 6.5. These are some big spreads,
Yeah, they
really,
are.
for an Elite Eight. Tennessee minus 7.5 and UConn plus 4.5.
You got it. Good luck.
Thank you, my friend. Have yourself a great rest of your weekend. We'll talk to you.
See ya.
All right, that's the Money Drain joining us on the Nicolay Talk and Text line. Charlie, some headlines, please.
It's a hot news for your radio. It's the headlines. Tell the headlines. Read all about it, headlines.
All right, let's get into some headlines. We only got a couple of minutes before we get to the top of the hour. Some of this stuff I think we can parlay over. Like I see, Money Train parlay. Come on now, work with me a little bit here as we make our way into the next hour.
Wow, that was impressive.
Especially the way
now.
Yeah.
especially the way the first hour has gone. Absolutely. But I want to start with what's going on in Kansas. And Dan, you and I talked a little bit about this before we came into the studio today, and that we're starting to see now with a traditional blue blood like that in Kansas, some rumblings happening in and around the university, where the university has reaped the rewards of Kansas basketball for seemingly ever. But now in this era of NIL and the transfer portal, the university now having, much like we talked last week with the new law here in the state that the governor should have on his desk shortly to sign off on, in the university now helping the basketball team and putting money into the basketball program, the powers that be have questions. And suddenly you have a Bill Self who basically was Teflon there in Kansas in running that program. Now it's getting a little heated, and I think that's the precursor for what could happen around the country, regardless of your Kansas, if you're Wisconsin, if you're North Carolina, which we'll get into in the next hour. Any of these programs now, there's a little more angst going on because of the money involved and the universities now having to contribute into these athletic
Right.
programs.
Yeah. We have to invest in these players now. And now
Right.
all of a sudden, this is becoming very transactional in the same way that you would see it in the NBA, the NFL, things like that. We spent how much money on this team
Uh-huh.
and we're not into the playoffs. We're not doing these things. What's going on? This is one of those unintended consequences we talked about, it seems like forever
Mhm.
when you talk about NIL. And yeah, I think any university has a right to kind of now look at these collegiate professional programs and say, we've invested this money, we've done these things, and you haven't gotten to a Sweet 16. You haven't made it to a Final Four. You haven't made it to, college football playoff. And those are going to be difficult questions that I think college coaches are not quite prepared to answer for.
And especially
They never have.
and
They've never had to
especially
do it.
a Bill Self
Yeah.
who arguably had the number one player in college basketball
Mm-hmm.
going into the season. Whether he's 1, 2, or 3 depends on who you talk to now heading into the draft. But when you again invest that kind of money, you never know what the powers that be are going to be feeling as far as writing that check once again.
Here's the thing, in my argument, Charlie, and jump in on this. We want to say, well, it's college. What can you do? Well, I think they're fair questions now. I think they're fair questions when you look at ROI.
Yeah.
That's something that's got to be answered for.
Definitely. And I think when I look at a guy like Darren Peterson, the way that Kansas handled that whole situation, Bill Self handled that whole situation this season, that feels like that type of deal is leading to moments like this, where the university is in this spot where we're spending a lot of money, but Bill Self is trying to protect the player's best interest, which is keeping him healthy too.
Yeah. It's there's so many new dynamics now that have come into play. Some of this stuff we're going to push now to the second hour because Charlie's telling me, be quiet, we got to go to break. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. It's College Sports Weekly, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook.
Basketball, football, baseball. From Division 1 to Division 3, it's time for College Sports Weekly with Don Macholis and Dan Underberg on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network.
All right, welcome in. Hour number 2 of College Sports Weekly right here live on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network, powered by Potawatomi Sportsbook. Don Macholis along with Professor Dan Underberg, Charlie Usen over there on the ones and twos, helping us fly right here as we make our way through the next 60 minutes and head to the top of the hour. Another big day in college basketball as we've reached the Elite Eight. We'll be talking about those games during this hour. We're also going to be joined by Jason Zimmerman. He's the head coach at Emory, and Emory getting ready next week down in Indianapolis to play for a national championship. So we'll get a chance to talk to Coach and see what the preparation is like in a season that's a little bit different, Dan, because the women have already wrapped up their natty, and Denison wins the Division III championship on the women's side. But the men at both the Division II and Division III level are going to push this to next weekend. And what you get down in Indianapolis, which we'll be down there for, we'll be doing our show from the Final Four in Indy next week, is the fact that now we'll get not only the Division I championship, obviously on Monday night, but on Sunday prior to it, we're going to get the Division II and Division III championships right there in Indianapolis as well. So as far as being a college basketball junkie, it's like all the planets have lined up. And so I'm wondering, and we'll ask Coach about this, what is it like now to have to push this back a week?
Yeah.
Is it better or worse when you get that extra week of preparation and waiting to contend for a national championship?
Yeah, and what's interesting about this is that both teams are dealing with this. Every now and again in pro sports, you see the occasional someone sweeps a series,
Right.
and they've got a week off while the other team is playing all the way through into the next series. And I don't know what's better, because I think once you're playing, you want to keep playing.
Well,
Right.
and it goes, Dan, we've talked about this, and you always bring it up, and rightfully so, and we talk about momentum.
Mhm.
So in your description there, you're on this roll,
Yep.
and then all of a sudden, again, for both teams, you get that lull. Would you rather just keep the momentum train going,
Right.
or get the week to rest, prepare, get healed up, and then go at it full strength as best you can this late in the season?
Yeah, and I think, to me, in my brain, whatever that's worth, I think of it that these two teams are going to come out probably a little bit more nervous. It's going to take them just another couple minutes to get back into the pace of the game, because it's all season, from game one until, the second to last game.
Right.
You're on a routine, you're on a schedule, and you're no more than 2 or 3 days away from playing a game and doing that. And now you've just got to sit and you've got to wait, and it festers. And yeah, I get it. You guys are getting healthy, you're getting your legs back, but so is the other team.
Right.
So I think it's going to be an interesting experiment to see how this works.
So a lot of talk this week with regards to Cinderella at the national tournament,
Mhm.
right? Is Cinderella dead? And I would say, in writing a blog on 414sports.com, that I don't think Cinderella is dead. I think, but what we have to do now, Dan, is redefine what Cinderella is. Because yes, High Point beats Wisconsin, had that Cinderella moment. I don't know if anymore we're going to see Cinderellas like we've seen in the past make deep runs. And my justification is this. Many a times those Cinderellas that made those deep runs, that even got to a Final Four, were teams that had been together for 3 or 4 years, that had grown together under the same coaching staff, that have been developed, and then everything just kind of clicked, right? You got that maturation of a 22-year-old that's been in the same system, that have gone through the bumps and bruises as a cohesive unit, as a team. They know one another. They know their tendencies. I mean, there's a lot of things you don't have to think about when you get to that point. That won't exist anymore in my mind, because I was even looking at some of the top players that are in the transfer portal. I think On3 had the list that I was looking at. And of course, then the player of the year in the Horizon League out of Robert Morris is one of the top 10 to hit the transfer portal. Teams that were mid-majors once now these guys make a name for themselves, as we've talked about, now the big programs, the Kentuckys, the Wisconsins, the Illinois, the Arizonas are diving into the mid-majors, if not the Division II teams, and pulling from there, to the point that Jeff Ligney made, the commissioner of the NACC, a few weeks ago when we had him on the show, that the only teams now that are going to be recruiting out of high school in the coming future are going to be Division III teams, which will be the purpose of developing some of these players, not all, but some of these players to move up in rank. I just think the Cinderella story as we know it will not exist anymore, but we're going to have to redefine. But it can't be Texas.
Thank you. I was just going to say that.
Just
It
because
can't be
Texas is a number 11
Right.
seed and they stunk all year and got on a bit of a roll. That to me isn't it. It's I don't even know I don't know if we can redefine it yet, but I think the definition as what we're used to is what's going to have to change.
I think it's a term over time is just going to fade. It's still going to be there. And every once in a while we can go back to it. But yeah, because there was a little bit of an effort to spin Texas as a Cinderella. Stop it. All the
Thank
money
you.
that university has, all the money the athletic department has, all the resources they have, and you want to put the Longhorns as a Cinderella? No, thank you. That's not going to happen. So I think it's going to be used less. I don't know that it's entirely going to go away. And every once in a blue moon, you are going to get a team that is going to shock you, that's going to get into the Sweet 16 that people didn't anticipate. That will be a true Cinderella. And we were talking about it, I think, earlier in the week, which is, what do you have to be to really be a Cinderella?
Mhm.
And in my brain, you got to get to the Sweet 16. You can't just win one game in the opening weekend. You got to get, you got to win two and let the press fall in love with you for a little bit. There just
Yes.
hasn't been any of that in this time around.
And that's what happened, Charlie, back in the day. I mean, we still go back and we look at UWM under Bruce Pearl, who got that team to the Sweet 16. And not only did the community once again kind of re-fall in love with UWM basketball, but it made national headlines. And honestly, it's what propelled Bruce Pearl on his way to now sitting in the studio and doing the commentary.
Where people like him less, seems like lately. So if Texas isn't that Cinderella team, which I get what you guys are trying, I was going to say the same thing. Like, that felt so weird that people were trying to spin it that way. What was NC State last year, 2 years ago, whenever that run was with DJ Burns? Because that's a high major team that
Yes, it
also doesn't have that same kind of push as a Texas. Like, where do we draw the line for what is a Cinderella team? Because a lot of people treated that group like it was a Cinderella team.
I think you have to go year by year. And when you look at an NC State, there was a team that really made its marquee off the Jim Valvano, right? Off of Jimmy V. They had that miraculous run, which could be considered a Cinderella run in and of itself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And got itself to national prominence, even though I wouldn't necessarily put them in a blue blood type category. That they had their moment in the sun. They've been good. They've been okay at times. They've been poor at times. And so when you see a team that's had some notoriety that falls off the deep end a little bit and then gets an opportunity, I don't have necessarily a problem with considering them being a Cinderella story in that moment. But to Dan's point, Texas didn't feel right, again, with the resources that they have, I should say, to consider them a Cinderella when Texas has been just mediocre. Now, it seems like I'm talking out of both sides of the mouth as far as my definition goes, because I guess Texas could fall into that category. And maybe then it comes personal bias. The fact that it's Texas, and I'm not going to buy the fact that with all the money that's floating around that campus that they could be a Cinderella. But the more I'm speaking out loud, I'm going, I just made the case for Texas in what I said about NC State.
Does the sports media, do they change that terminology then? So when they want to talk about a team like Texas in a moment like this, because you have to, that's an 11 seed still, that's still upsetting teams around, do they start saying, oh, that's a Frog Prince, that's not a Cinderella anymore, that's a team that went really ugly and all of a sudden is pretty again, or a beast or something like that? Like, do
No,
you change
stick
the
with Frog
terminology?
Prince. Okay, let's just run with that one. Yeah,
that's
I
what I'm
like
saying.
that.
So like,
You
do
gotta
they change it in order to
trademark
make
that.
a story out of like these teams when you don't have those mid-major teams that
Well,
are
it's
making
a
as long
thing
of a run?
now.
It is a
It's
thing
who's
now.
going to be our Frog Prince next year? The
Uh-huh.
team that's got all this
I like
money and playing poorly gets into the NCAA tournament and then makes it to the Sweet 16. They're not a Cinderella.
They're not a
They're
Cinderella.
Frog
They're a
Prince.
Frog Prince.
I
They're a
love
Frog
that.
Prince. A High Point wins 2 games. There's your Cinderella.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
I think you're still going to get Cinderellas that might find a way to get to the Sweet 16. High Point surprised everybody. Okay, they beat Wisconsin, but in that second round matchup, they gave everything
Yes,
they
they
had,
did,
and
yeah.
they were right there at the finale of that in order for an opportunity to move forward. A Utah State, maybe, who really, mucked down Arizona there, especially in the second half, and kept it close. You still have the opportunities for Cinderellas. I don't think the Frog Prince analogy finds itself anymore into the Final Four.
So let me ask you this hypothetically. This is Indiana gets to a 12 seed.
Mhm.
Indiana has not had a lot of success. Indiana is floating around. We think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Is Indiana blue blood or is it not anymore? Stuff like that. Indiana works its way in. No one's really thinking much about Indiana, but then they upset the 5 seed and then they get one more. Is Indiana Hoosier, would they conceivably be the Frog Prince, or would they be the Cinderella team in that situation?
But their basketball team's spending almost as much as their football team. So like that's a school where they're still spending $20+
So they're the Frog
million.
Prince.
So they're a
Okay,
Frog
that's
Prince.
fine.
I love
That's
that.
fine.
I love that. Now we've got classifications
Yeah.
of ugly.
Well, yeah, you've got the different levels
You got
because
the
you've got the
different
Toad
levels.
Prince, you got the Frog Prince, you've got it's
Yeah. So okay. So I think the definition hasn't been necessarily solidified yet on what Cinderella is going to look like in the midst of NIL and the transfer portal. I just think though the traditional Cinderella of the mid-major is going to be really tough to identify moving forward. We had another storyline take place this week, and that's Hubert Davis being let go by North Carolina. Now, I know we are on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network. Why are we talking about North Carolina? Because I think North Carolina, what's happening there in Chapel Hill can be happening in Madison at any given point, with, again, what's happening with the amount of money, as we were talking about with Kansas in the headlines in the previous hour. Here's a guy who has made 4 NCAA appearances. He's been to 1 Final Four. He's gone 125-54. He's been a regular season champ in the ACC. I mean, he's only been in Chapel Hill for 5 years. I think the resume is pretty good. Was it an ugly exit this year? Absolutely.
Yes,
you gave up that lead. You lose in overtime to Vandy. Not necessarily the way you want to go. But here's to me where you need a strong administration, because doggone well the people who write the checks were putting pressure on the athletic administration needing to make a move. And now, once again, we sit with a traditional blue blood where the playing field is even. I'll say it this way now. The days of North Carolina and Duke and Kansas and everybody else being at a level higher than everyone, it doesn't exist anymore because NIL has made the floor kind of equitable. I'm going to be interested to see how North Carolina handles this, because traditionally they've gone in-house, right? You bring in a North Carolina guy to take over. All indications right now is that they want to look outside the program. Who wants to jump into that fire? You hear about May at Michigan, you hear about Arizona, you hear about some of these schools right now that are vying for a Final Four experience, having to answer the question, do you want to go to North Carolina? And I'm looking at every single program, maybe with the exception of Vandy, where I'd say, why? Why do I want to leave? I've got it. If I'm Arizona, I'm it on campus. If football goes 500 in Tucson, that's a good year. A couple of games over 500, that's a good year. Basketball right now is the king. It's dominant.
Right.
Why am I leaving this? I just don't know why anybody now wants to jump to North Carolina, other than the fact that, Jordan went there. Okay, there's a lot
Maybe
of
he'll take the job.
You never know.
But you get where I'm going with
I
this.
do.
I think it's been evened out where I
Yeah.
don't think Carolina is what Carolina used to be.
And yet there's going to be a handful of coaches that are going to see a little bit of a bump in salary because their agents are going to do the right job, right? And kind of find a way to maneuver the media into connecting their guy's name to that potential position.
And I think it's already
Yeah.
been done
It's
with
been- yeah.
the names that are being floated out.
Yeah, I think so too. It's a really interesting kind of conversation to be had, because you've got to ask yourself, do you want to put yourself in that crucible that is North Carolina basketball? Is that what you want to do? And when you are in an environment where it's not just the athletic department, but it's all the donors, all the people around you that are writing the checks, you may only have one boss in terms of the organizational chart, but you've got a lot of people that think
Yeah.
they are
Right.
protecting the nature of what it is to be North Carolina basketball. They're not going to let it slide the way we're not going to let that happen the way it's happened at Indiana.
Well,
Right.
I think part of my problem with North Carolina and why I think they kind of screwed themselves in this whole situation is you have the historical precedent set by the success that you've had as a program over the course of the past 60 years. But then you go on your football side of things and spend so much money in hiring Bill
Yep.
Belichick and hiring his
Mhm.
staff and this
Mhm.
general manager that now you are more strapped for cash in your basketball program, while they still have a lot of money in that basketball program, I'm sure. But now you're a coach going into there with less money than any coach has ever had at North Carolina in that basketball program. And you're expected to match the same standards that were already set. You are tied, your hands are tied behind your back. You can't do anything. And then you're just going to be the scapegoat when things don't go right, despite you not having the financial ability to compete with some of these other schools because they're not focusing on football. When Arizona is allowing their football team to go 5-5 every year, even Wisconsin to some degree, like these other schools will want to put more money into their basketball programs. North Carolina should have not signed Bill Belichick because now you're handicapping every other part of your university's athletic program.
Absolutely. And we've
Yep.
talked about what football can do from a revenue standpoint. And then we go back to Kansas and what's happening there as far as the money and people looking at one another differently than what they have in the past. I think it's, again, things that are going to have to play out here as the transfer portal and NIL continues. We got to get to a break. As we come back from the break, we're going to be joined by Coach Zimmerman, the head coach at Emory, as they prepare again for a Division III national championship. We'll talk to Coach next. It's College Sports Weekly, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. All right, welcome back in. It's College Sports Weekly, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios. As always, we are powered by the Potawatomi Sports Book. We're going to jump to the Nicolay Law Talk and text line and bring in our guest. It's head coach Jason Friend of Emory. Coach, good morning. Glad to have you on board.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I heard you talking
Go
a
ahead.
little bit. I heard you talking a little bit about the North Carolina job. I happened to go to school at Davidson right down the road, and if you ever been on campus, you know why people take that job. It's like heaven over there in North Carolina. Come on. Like,
Okay, so do we have breaking news, Coach? If they contacted you, and are you on the short list to make the jump and go to North Carolina?
Yeah, we do have breaking news. I took my name out of consideration for the job since I never was in consideration for the job. I took my name out of consideration for the job. I've already talked to my agent, and we're trying to get a better deal here at Emory. So,
Oh, that was so well played. Great
Nicely
job.
done. This is gonna go
Nicely
well.
done. Oh, that's awesome. So, Coach, we love Division III sports, and it's one of the things we love to cover on our show because of what goes on here in the state of Wisconsin, and the number of Division III teams that we have within our borders and the kind of success that we have over time in the various sports. And now to be able to reach out and talk to you, getting ready to play for a national championship. And I'm going to start it this way. One of the things we were talking about early on in the show was the fact that you've got this lull right now from a basketball fan's perspective. What's going to take place in Indianapolis is spectacular, to go from the Final Four, then to have the Division II and III championships to the Division I championship. I mean, that's nirvana for me to head down there next week and get to watch all of that. But you get this extended break, for lack of a better way of saying it. Is that a good or bad thing? Because we constantly talk about momentum and what it can mean for a team, but I can also understand what it must mean to have the opportunity to take a break, get healthy, get everybody back to, as best you can, full strength before you make your way into a national championship game.
well, if they would have told me we were going to play the national championship game in June, I said I'm in. As long as I'm in the game, like we're playing, let's go, right? So that's first. Second, I'll probably tell you about momentum and all that after next Sunday, right? Like if we play
Right.
well, I say it didn't hurt us. If we play poorly, we're excited about it. You know, you do get into a rhythm in the season. You do get into a rhythm, and we've been back for about a week now, and we've had a pretty good rhythm in practice. We haven't started. We've kind of sprinkled in prep as we go this week, and then we'll hit it hard on Monday. Like get back into the prep week for Mary Washington. They're very good. Coach Kahn does a great job with his team. So, I think our guys are staying good in rhythm. We are getting a little healthy. We are playing a little bit longer live than we usually do, maybe just because we have that time. But, in Division III, sometimes you have those breaks too, like over a holiday in December. Sometimes we don't play. This year we did, but sometimes we don't play from December 6th to like the 29th. So our guys have kind of been through that a little bit. And when you're playing for the national championship game, it's a little different, right? It's not a December game. It's a little different, but we're excited about it. And we're very grateful to be this year to go. We go any year, but to go this year where we get to go to the Division I. I grew up in Indiana, and it's just really special to go back. Before I get to the next question, I got to tell you, I had some PTSD with you guys because when I was in the national NCAA tournament, one of the first years we beat Stevens Point, and then we got beat by Whitewater in 2014. So Whitewater beat us. The next year I came to Stevens Point again. Stevens Point beat us. 2 years later, I think 3 years later after that, we got beat by Oshkosh. Well, hell, I've been beat by all the Wisconsin teams. And then I got you guys calling me to be on the show. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on here? So yeah, you guys great. You guys got great Division III basketball up there.
Yeah, we do.
I respect
We
it.
do.
Yeah. Respect it.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for saying that. And again, thanks for being on the show. Apologize for the PTSD on that one. That's a great way to put it. Completely opposite of that, okay, is you have an opportunity, going through your bio, and you have had a lot of success as a head coach. You've made a lot of tournament appearances. You've been able to build a program. you're in this world of D3 now and of changing college basketball everywhere. How do you prepare, or how have you felt what has been going on, apparently at the D1 level with NIL and things like that? How has it impacted Emory, and has it impacted you, and how has it impacted your players?
Yeah, I think it's impacted us the most with the transfer portal, like the grad transfer stuff. A
Mhm.
lot of teams in our league have gotten grad transfers. A lot of teams in our division have picked up some grad transfers, who the teams that can. So that changes it a little bit for as far as that goes. Some people have gotten into NIL stuff. I wouldn't say it's like at the highest level where it's pay for play
Sure.
right now.
Right.
But some people have gotten into it a little bit. Some of my guys have NIL, but I joke with my guys. One guy had like a NIL deal at Chopped, and I can't even get a salad at Chopped. Like, can I? Hey, I'm coaching you. Can I get a salad? Like, so some guys have had little deals like that, and but it's the transfer portal. Probably, I've had to deal with that more in the last 3 or 4 years. We haven't taken any. Not that I'm against them. We have a great grad program here at Emory, so that may be an option here in the future. But we've had a really good group of guys the last 3 or 4 years, and they've grown together. We've just decided that we're gonna, kind of roll with these guys right now. Now next year, year after, I'm not saying I won't go, right? But like right now, we've had a good run at it.
Coach, you talked about your guys, and so let's take a minute talk about Ben Pierce and Jair Knight. The first tandem, I think we can say it that way, that were selected to be All-Americans out of one team. Really kind of the driving force. I mean, we talk about guard play at the Division I level when it comes to the tournament. Well, guard play is important all the way down the line, but you've got two solid seniors that have helped propel you now to a potential national championship, which will take place next week, Sunday.
Yeah, they're really special players. They complement each other really well. But more important than that, they're well, I don't know if it's more important since I'm the coach, but they're really special people, right? And they're just really special people. They're great leaders. They're great teammates. Ben can really score. Jair can really score. Jair's really athletic. Jair's more make you say wow kind of thing. Like he can make you say wow sometimes athletically. And then Ben is quieter demeanor, like vocally, but he's not quiet on the court by any means. And those two guys just kind of anchor us, and they make you they make you look like a good coach. If you have two All-Americans and you don't win, then we're in trouble. Right? So.
What when you look at these, and as you mentioned, they're both seniors. How do you're focused on the game right now, so it's probably not a totally fair question, but how do you begin to prep for the loss of that senior leadership a little bit? How do you kind of groom the next level of seniors, those juniors that are coming through, those next guys that you're going to need to lead for your team, those on-court leaders? How do you begin to groom that process?
Man, you guys are killing me. Like you asked me that question. I wake up at night in sweats trying to figure out what I'm going to do the next year. Like, come on, like I'm in a national championship game. No, our program's been one of the things I'm really proud about our program is we've had generations of guys, right? So it hasn't been just Ben and Jair. It's been the guys before them. We've been to 12 tournaments in the last 13 years, and the 1 year we missed it by one game, and we lost 9 games by 4 points or less. So like we've been on, we've had generations of players, generations of leaders. And when I say generations, I mean like college generations. We used to call it 4 years college generations. Now the Division I level, you have 1 year generations, but we have 4 years of generations guys. So seniors teaching the sophomores, juniors, the freshmen. And so I don't know how it's going to look next year necessarily, but I do know we have a good crew of young guys below them that are not waiting their time, but they're pushing Ben and Jair to be better. And, in practice, we watch it, and there's guys ready to step up in that role. So, yeah, I'm excited about that next year. I don't want to look at it for another about 10 days, but I'm excited about that challenge for us and our team. I think our guys are ready to step up into that role.
We're talking with Jason Zimmerman. He's the head coach at Emory, as Emory next week, Sunday afternoon, will play against Mary Washington for a chance at the Division III National Championship. So let's talk about the game a little bit, Coach. A preliminary scouting report on what you're facing as far as Mary Washington goes.
Yeah, they're really, really talented defensively. They really make it hard for you to score. They don't let you get to the rim. They close up gaps. There's not a lot of space to play, and we like to play in space, so that's going to be a challenge for us. And then on the flip side of that, offensively, they have an All-American guard that can really score, and then they play really well off that. They got guys that can make threes. They in their games, in their 5 NCAA tournament games, they've had a stretch in every game where they bang a 3 or 2 or 3 threes, and then they stretch it out. So it goes from like down 2 to up 9, or down up 5 to up 14. And so they can attack the rim, they can make threes, they make it hard for you to score. And like I said, Coach does a really good job. Marcus does a really good job with his team. We played them last year in the Sweet 16, so we know them a little bit. We were fortunate enough to win. We won. They missed a shot at the buzzer, and we won by 2. We played them a couple years ago. They played in our classic down here in Atlanta. So I got to know Coach the last 4 years. He does a great job, and they're really difficult to play against. That being said, I think we have a pretty good crew, so we're excited about that the competition.
Let's flip the coin then and tell us, exactly. Well, not exactly. I don't want you to give anything up, but when you're going into this game, how would you game plan if for your team? How, if you had to defend your guys,
Well,
how would you game plan for Emory?
I'd leave Ben Pierce wide open. I wouldn't guard him.
Yeah.
Let Jair do whatever he wants. Like, let us get on the offensive glass. Don't don't worry. Play fat. Like all that.
Yeah.
So no. Obviously, we play really fast, right? So teams can play fast with us, but a lot of teams try to slow it down a little bit, try to control the tempo a little bit, and actually, what they do really well is probably how I would guard us. So, that's why it's going to be a great game. Like what their strengths are and our strengths are very, very similar. Excuse me. So, that they complement each other. So it's going to be a great game that way. Yeah, and we're just excited to get going. In 2 weeks, like, what do I do for 2 weeks? Like, goodness gracious, I can only have so many talk shows to go on. Or like somebody was saying, I know you were talking about Bill Belichick in North Carolina. Somebody on one of our parents said, "Hey, I know Bill Belichick. Do you want to talk to him?" I said, "Why the hell would Bill Belichick want to talk to me about 2 weeks?" Well, you can get ready for 2 weeks before a Super Bowl. I'm like, good gracious, like we're taking it too far here now. Come on.
Coach, we're up against a break. We can't thank you enough.
This has been a pleasure. Thank you
Yes,
for coming on.
joining us. And I'll say this. I hope in 2 weeks I'm inviting you back on with a trophy sitting behind you, and we can continue that conversation.
Hey, you invite me back on with or without the trophy. I hope I have the trophy, but I'll come back on. And if you're going to be in Indianapolis, I'd love to see you for sure.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely. We can talk hairstyles. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a good barber for you.
All right. Head coach Jason Zimmerman, who was kind enough to join us, the head coach at Emory on the Nicolay Law Talk and text line. Coach, obviously, as we were saying,
Do that every day.
Absolutely. Leading Emory as they'll vie against Mary Washington for the national championship next week, Sunday. I think it's time for us to take a break and collect our breath because he was the best. We'll take a break. We'll hand out some shovels and talk about those Elite Eight games that we've been trying to get to for the entire 2 hours. We may do it after this commercial break. It's College Sports Weekly, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook.
wanna shovel the funk. I wanna shovel the funk. I wanna shovel the funk. I feel like shovel the funk. I gotta shovel the funk. You wanna shovel the funk? Do you wanna shovel the funk? Then go ahead. Go.
All right, one last time. Welcome in. It's College Sports Weekly, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook, as we make our way around the table and hand out some shovels on this Saturday morning. Charlie, I start with you, sir.
All right. I feel like I've been like kind of outside of Wisconsin with every single one of my shovels, but I like going to like the national stage sometimes
That's
too.
all right.
And as we talk about this Elite Eight and the matchups that are happening coming forward this weekend, I got to give my shovel to Ben McCollum, head coach of the Iowa Hawkeyes. I feel like what he's done with that program so far, and especially through this tournament, the way he talks about his players on his team, it just feels like I talked about with some of these other coaches, like Danny Hurley, where he just builds such a close connection with his players, and how quickly he's been able to do that in this semi-new gig for him. I think this is something that he deserves a lot of credit for, this type of run that they're making. They weren't the team I was expecting to kind of have that run out of the Big Ten, but they've come out here and done an amazing job. Ben McCollum gets my shovel.
All right, fair enough. Professor, how about you, sir?
Well, I could easily go with Jason Zimmerman right now. That
Yeah,
would
oh
be
my
a,
gosh,
a
yes.
really easy shovel to go. I'm going to go Mark Johnson. I think head coach of the women's hockey program over at UW-Madison. And granted, I'm sure he's not pushing away space on his trophy mantle for our shovel, but you know,
You never know.
Can you put that over to the side? But this is a very important award, as I've said in some Christmas movies. But what he's done,
Yeah.
and he has seemingly always found a way to find the players that come away with the big win. This is not a guaranteed win against Ohio State, and when Wisconsin has won national championships, at least recently, they've been nail biters. These have
Absolutely.
been good games, and the strength of the program, the strength of the team, it's just been amazing. I heard someone say not long after he won that championship, said, build the man a trophy. It's time. And that's the kind of impact he has had on that program. The trophy can be holding one of our shovels, but I just think what he's accomplished has been amazing. So
Yeah.
Mark Johnson gets it this week.
Absolutely. And listen, I can't sit here and say I watch much hockey during the course of a season, but what took place at the Olympics and watching the men's and women's teams win the gold medal in overtime, and then to see the women beat Ohio State in overtime.
Yep.
I don't think there is a more electrifying completion to a game or a match than overtime hockey. I mean, it is spectacular, especially at the collegiate, Olympic, and professional levels. Again, not watching much NHL. I just don't, but give me a game 7 in the Stanley Cup.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's like,
that's theater right there.
That's a great way of putting it. It is just outstanding theater. My shovel this week goes to Fred Hoiberg, the head coach at Nebraska, who seemingly doesn't know how to count and know that there should be 5 players instead of 4 in the midst of an opportunity
Full
to
circle
go
moment here.
to
Yes.
the Elite 8. So, Fred, you can have my shovel and you can dig your own hole to jump into, because you're going to get hit with a lot by the Nebraska media here in the coming weeks. To me, this is one of those mistakes that won't necessarily die soon. Texas, talks about whether or not they should have had the big guy on the floor in the midst of the last few seconds to protect the rim. That's strategical. Those types of things will seemingly kind of fade a little bit over time. When you don't put the proper number of players out on the court after a timeout, this one is going to haunt you for quite some time.
You know what? And it's so sad that that's the way the season ends for the Huskers, because what a fantastic season they had. And for everything that they've done right, this is what you're going to remember from the season. That's too bad.
It's really unfortunate. And not only just for like that team from the season, but because we haven't had a lot of these mid-major runs, the Cinderella stories, all these other stories behind it, like that's going to be the moment that people are going to remember, unless something huge happens in this Elite Eight on, which is very possible. We've seen game winners in the national championship game. I was just looking back at Villanova and Chris Jenkins, him hitting that shot, and that was just a phenomenal moment. But when you have the biggest negative moment of a tournament, that sticks with you. And Sparky and I were talking about this on Wisconsin Sports Daily is if you were the Milwaukee Bucks and looking at the college level at head coaches potentially that could come up, I said Fred Hoiberg was the guy. Does something like this change the way people view you for other jobs across the country, whether it's still in college or at a professional level?
Absolutely, I think it does. Because as you were noting, the best part about the tournament outside of who wins the national championship is directly after the one shining moment, and you see all of those spectacular plays. Speaking of one shining moment, which I'm deviating, which I know is shocking to both of you, is if you saw the end and the women's game last night between Duke and LSU, a step back three for Duke that took a complete lap and another complete lap around the cylinder before falling through as the horn was sounding. Duke advances. Kim Mulkey and LSU, bye-bye. I'm okay. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with Kim
I'm
Mulkey
tired of
going.
LSU in general, just
Yeah.
as a school.
Mhm.
Speaking of LSU, this week they're talking about bringing back an old familiar name, that being Will Wade.
Yep.
And Will Wade is slimy as ever. Did you see how he left NC State?
I did. Yeah.
Didn't say a word. Had the discussion about what NIL is going to look like for the coming year, what the transfer portal, what are we going to do to rebuild the team? The very next day, it's not Will Wade who contacts the AD. It's his agent through an email that says, yeah, he's jumping ship and going back to LSU. And what's ironic, again, for the Will Wades, the Rick Pittinos, we can go down the line of the world that got in trouble 10, 15 years ago because what they were doing to recruit players is now above board, and now no one cares. The stuff that Will Wade got in trouble for at LSU, no one cares about anymore because we're all now paying for players as far as recruiting goes to bring athletes to a particular program.
Yeah, I'll shift that a little bit. Rick Pitino was doing other things. He had some. He was
diversified his recruiting
yeah,
portfolio.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah,
Right.
and a lot of smiles at Louisville. But you know, it's interesting. And for all the angst and complaining about, I'll call it the Will Wades of the world and whoever you want to throw into that boat, they still keep coming back. They still keep getting jobs. You know, so it does offer a bit of NASCAR drama to have these coaches in the NCAA. That is kind of the fun part about it.
All right, boys, let's go around the table as we make our way towards the top of the hour. I want to reiterate the money train gave us Illinois -7.5. He likes Purdue +6.5, Tennessee -7.5, and UConn +4.5. Those were his picks when we talked to him in hour one. We're going to put the lines to the side. We're just going to grab a team. First up, Iowa, Illinois. Charlie.
Iowa. I like this run keep going. I don't like Illinois. I don't like anything about them. Go Iowa.
How about you, Dan?
I don't like Illinois either, but I think they're going to win this game.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I'm not an Illinois fan by any means, but I think Illinois got too much, and they'll advance to the Final Four. Next game, Purdue, Arizona. I don't even if anybody knows, you know who I'm taking in this one. But Charlie, go ahead.
I'm going with Arizona in this one. Not that I don't like what Purdue can do. I just feel like they're too much in the system. Arizona can go out of that system a little more. I think that helps them.
That's a great assessment. I agree with that completely. Is that Arizona can create when they need to create.
Arizona can create when they need to create, and I think Arizona is one of the deeper teams that is remaining in the Elite Eight, and I think that depth really has benefited them all season long, and I'll take Arizona to get to the Final Four as well. And then we've got a couple of games going on tomorrow. We start with Tennessee and Michigan. I already know where the professor's going, but that's okay. Charlie, I start with you.
I'm going with Michigan. I think this is a team that, while I said before, I think they can get caught off guard, they won't let that happen in an Elite Eight matchup where you need to be ready to go.
Okay, well, I've got nothing to add to that. Yeah, Michigan. And I'm not saying go Wolverines,
Seriously?
Big M. Yeah.
I'm shocked.
Yeah. Well,
You are the same human being yesterday
yes.
that told me I'll take anyone who's facing Michigan. And now Charlie
was
turns the
ready for
mic
that.
on and you go, yeah, I'll take Michigan.
Yeah, no,
I'm floored.
Michigan's the better team. Michigan's the better team. Look, do I want to see Michigan win? No. But
root
who-
for Tennessee.
I am rooting for Tennessee. I am rooting for the Volunteers. I just don't think Tennessee is going to win that game.
Okay. Jeez, so practical on a Saturday morning. I won't be. I'm going Tennessee. Give me the Vols on the upset. Give me a Michigan meltdown in that first 20 minutes like I was
Great.
talking about, and Tennessee rolls in this
Okay.
one. So I'll take
I'll
the Vols.
smile with that.
Now, to me, this is probably the game of the Elite Eight.
Mhm.
As we look at UConn and Duke, I think the matchups, their storylines, two iconic coaches, because I'll give Duke, though his tenure has been short, it has been incredibly successful. So, Charlie, I start with you, UConn and Duke.
I think I'm going to go with Duke. When that team wants to play, they're the best team in basketball. It's pretty simple, pretty easy. And I think when they go out here again, like I said with Michigan, it's a Elite Eight matchup. You got to be ready to play. They're going to be ready to play.
Dan?
Obviously, Duke has won the games to get here, but it's never been a perfect Duke game, and I'm going to go UConn.
You're going to go UConn, and I'm going to agree. UConn has a way of just being a little more physical than I think some of these teams down the stretch are used to outside of Michigan State, but I'll take UConn as well. All right, that's it for us. Our thanks to Coach Zimmerman, Jason Zimmerman, the head coach at Emory, vying for a national championship next week Sunday. We're at the Final Four next week Sunday, coming to you live. It's College Sports Weekly, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio studios, powered by Potawatomi Sportsbook.